Hey everyone, Dom here, and it's time to wrap up July and take a look at August. So like, subscribe, stick around. So after the highs of June and the Shelf Space Olympics readathon, July was always going to be a smaller month in terms of books read. But before we get into the books that I read in July, I'm going to take a quick look at the scoring mechanism that I use in the reviews that I've been doing over the past 10 or so years, because I'm going to start adapting these and bringing them into my video reviews as well. So you may have seen a bit of this if you've viewed the Sword of Kaigan review that I recently released, which is where I first introduced this kind of method of scoring to the channel. But over the past 8, 9, 10 years or so that I've been reviewing books on various platforms, I've been keeping a track for myself, and what I'll do is I will individually rate each book in 7 different categories, and these are weighted as well, so more important categories to me will have a higher score available to them. So I will rate enjoyment overall, the world, characters and plot out of 20. I'll rate the writing style out of 10, the pace out of 5, and then I'll also hold back 5 discretionary points, which I'll award for things like a great looking cover, maps in the book, other artwork in the book and other resources such as character list, glossary, extra information as fits the particular book. So that's kind of the general basis of that final discretionary category. Now, anyone who's good at mental arithmetic may have added these up and realised that they come to 100, which gives me a nice little percentage score for the book without having to do any additional trickery. So world, characters and plot, and my general enjoyment, I weight the highest. I give those 20 points, so that's a total of 80% of the book score will be for those 4 categories, because I feel that they're the most important. The pacing and the writing style don't have as big an impact on the book as a whole, so they are 5 and 10 points respectively. And therefore, if it's a book that I'm really enjoying, or if it's a fantastic world or great characters, but the pacing's a little bit off, it's the world and the characters who have more of an impact on the overall score. So the second aspect of me keeping these scores for myself is that I have a ranked kind of league table, a hall of fame of all the books that I've reviewed since I've been doing this method. So I've got a nice little spreadsheet, because who doesn't love a spreadsheet? And on that I've got every book listed there in a ranked order, which means absolutely nothing, but it's fun for me and it's interesting to see where each book sits alongside the other books that I've previously read. Now this does sometimes give some interesting results, because I will frequently look back at books on this table and wonder how a book is so high or so low. But that's kind of the beauty of rating it this way for me, because I'm not just relying on what I call a gut feeling rating out of 5 or 10. I'm rating individual elements and seeing where they add up to. Sometimes it works out exactly the same. Some books, on the other hand, might come out quite low on my star rating, but receive a higher score because they've got a really good world or characters, and that carries a higher weighting than some of the other factors that I might enjoy a little bit less. So on to July then, and I set myself on my initial TBR, 3 books to read, because 2 of those were advanced review copies that were released in August. Third book that I put myself down for was a buddy read, which was scheduled for July. Once I'd finished those, I picked up a 4th book as well, because that's my intention, to finish the books that I've set myself and then just read whatever takes my fancy. So the 4 books in total covered just over 1,700 pages at an average of around about 440 per book. My average for the year so far is 506 pages, because that for me is the beauty of fantasy. They are generally big chunky books, and I'm interested to see where that figure ends up at the end of the year, to see whether it is north or south of 500 pages. So July's first book was Nolan by Michael J. Sullivan. This is book 1 of the Rise and Fall, his new series, which deals with the rise and fall of some key figures of the world that his main series are set in. So we're talking the Rhaenyra Revelations and Rhaenyra Chronicles and the Legends of the First Empire books. The Rise and Fall series is set in between Legends of the First Empire and the Rhaenyra kind of timeline. So I was quite interested, because I've read some of the Rhaenyra books, I've read Revelations, and it ranks up there in my top 10 fantasy series. Nolan is released right at the start of August, so it should be available by the time you see this video if you want to go and pick up a copy for yourself. I wasn't too impressed, if I'm honest. As I say, I really liked Rhaenyra Revelation, so Nolan was a disappointment to me. So I only gave it a 3-star rating. It came out as 66% on my weighted scale, which put it in equal 55th in my kind of Hall of Fame of books that I've reviewed in this manner. So not a great overall position. I was disappointed because I enjoyed Rhaenyra so much, but Nolan just didn't live up to it for me. I found a number of issues with the book, but I think, to be honest, a lot of this was because I just wasn't enjoying it, so I was kind of nitpicking, letting those things kind of jump out at me a little bit more and affect me a little bit more than they normally would do. I did do a video review of Nolan where I went through all of this in probably too much detail, so I'll link it in the cards above if you want to check that out if you haven't already done so. Second book for the month was the second review copy, and that was The Maleficent 7 by Cameron Johnston. This one I was quite looking forward to as well. I loved the cover of it. I just thought it was pretty much unique, and it looked like it was a really interesting, kind of fun and exciting read. Although I did enjoy it more than Nolan, it still didn't quite hit the heights of expectation for me, but I realised as I was reading it that maybe it's just not really my style, so am I really surprised there? We were dealing with vampires and demon lords and necromancers, and normally if I'm reading about any of those, you get maybe the odd one in a book as a bad guy or something along those lines, but we had 7 of these types of characters in this book, and it was just a little bit too much trying to fit them all on the page together. They all should have had their own story if they were going to have a story, rather than being squashed into the one book. It just was a little bit too ambitious for me, and it just wasn't able to reach those kind of heights. This one though scored 69% on my weighted scale, so again a little bit better than Nolan, and that ranked it a few places higher in the Hall of Fame at equal 48th. Third book of the month then was the buddy read, which was Sword of Kaigan. This one I did read partially in the physical copy and partially on the ebook, because I just find it easier to read on ebook, but a couple of times I took the book outside, so that's where this guy came in, and I was able to continue whilst I was outside in the sunlight as well, which was quite nice for a change. This one, definitely an improvement over the previous 2 books. It was a 4-star rating for me, a nice solid 4 stars as well. Again, I had some issues with it, but as I discussed in the video review, the positive points on this one really outweighed the negative points for me. The writing style was so engaging and just so easy to get into. So if you haven't read this one, I definitely recommend it. I really enjoyed it, even if it did have those elements that aren't normally my kind of style. So the 4-star rating of Sword of Kaigan, on a weighted scale it was 78%, which again roughly balances out, and this one was equal 26th on the Hall of Fame. So again towards the higher end of the scale on that respect. And then the fourth book of the month that I also enjoyed was Voice of War by Zach Argyle. This one I also gave 4 stars. Look out for a video review coming soon on this one. I still need to film it, but again, I really enjoyed this book. It was something that was a little bit different. The writing I didn't feel was as good as Sword of Kaigan, but there were other elements that I did prefer to Sword of Kaigan. So this one, it came out of the same score on the kind of the overall enjoyment, the star rating, and just fractionally below Sword of Kaigan in the weighted ratings. This one was a 77%, so just 1 point less, and that put it equal 29th in the Hall of Fame. So again, nice and high on the overall list, because it was a 4-star read, and that's exactly where you expect them to be. This one though, I thought had a really interesting world and the magic system that came with it, and I was really interested, although there weren't a vast number of characters that we saw a lot of, the characters themselves I thought were quite well done. So I'm really interested with this one to read book 2, which I'm going to pick up at some point soon, and probably do before the end of the year, because I want to see where this story goes. So then we move on to August, and I'm going to do exactly the same kind of thing here. I'm going to give 4 books, but I might abbreviate that to 3. We'll see how we go. And 3 of the titles that I'm going to list now are actually buddy reads. So my first one was Sword of Kaigan last month, and then moving up from never doing any to doing 1, and now I'm doing 3 in a month. And I think that's kind of the way forward for me at the moment, because I've got quite a few that are scheduled in the next couple of months as well. And I guess a lot of it will depend on how I go, especially with this fourth title I'll talk about in a moment, and whether I decide if I'm going to go ahead with it, carry on with it once I read it. Who knows? It's all in the future. So the first book for August is actually one that I was a little bit nervous about, because it is Empire in Black and Gold, book one of Shadows of the Apt by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Now, why am I nervous about this? Might seem a little bit silly, but this is actually one of my favourite series. Shadows of the Apt is right up there, 2 or 3 in the list. I haven't actually compiled a definitive top 10 list, but it's right towards the top of it. I read this book sort of 10 years ago, a couple of years after it came out, and I really liked it, loved the series, carried on. I was buying them when they came out and finished them in 2014 when book 10 came out. The Library of Alexandria, Alan is running August of the Apt, or starting with August of the Apt. He's running a 4-month read-along for the first 4 books of Shadows of the Apt. And naturally I had to join in because I'm one of the people who's talked up the series, and no one else really knew a lot about it. People hadn't heard it and certainly hadn't read it. So I wanted, as much as anything, I wanted to join in and see whether it was just me or whether other people liked it as well. I was, though, nervous in case people didn't like it, and then it would kind of be, oh, my reputation's on the line, and it's failed at that first hurdle. So it's kind of a bit apprehensive going into it. But the other part of it was, it's one of my favourite series. What if I don't like it again? What if my tastes have changed and so forth? But I'm pleased to report that is not the case. So I had a couple of days left at the end of July after finishing Voice of War, so I picked up Empire in Black and Gold and started it a couple of days early, and so far I'm really enjoying it again. It's really nice to be back in the world, back in the lowlands, reading about all the different insect kingdom. I'm really looking forward to finishing this book, to carrying on with the series, but kind of more than that, I'm really looking forward to seeing what other people are thinking of it and whether they're liking it as well. And so far in Alan's Discord, general consensus seems to be that people are enjoying it. They're finding it quite interesting, quite intriguing. So I'm hoping that's going to continue as more people read it and get further through the book. Next book I'm aiming to read, or next book I will be reading, is another review copy. So again, that's another reason that I'm putting it in now, because this one's released on the 7th of September. So again, I want to make sure that I read it nice and early in August, so that I'm not bogged down with another book and rushing to try and finish this one before the release date. So this one, I spoke about it a little bit in my digital book haul video if you've seen that, but it's M.J. Kuhn's Among Thieves. This is a Six of Crows style caper, or at least that's how the marketing describes it. It's an adult fantasy though, and it's a heist scenario basically. So I quite like those. I like a clever plot line, and the heist scenario really is one that maybe more than others really lends itself to a clever bit of writing. So I'm hoping that's what I'm going to get here. I'm hoping that it's going to be a bit more along the lines of The Lies of Loch Lamora than it is Six of Crows. More than anything, just in the the feel to it, because I don't really do YA. I'm nothing against it, it's just not for me. And although I have listened to the audiobook of Six of Crows, so I'll be able to give kind of a comparison and see which one it more closely aligns itself with. I am hoping that the comparison to Six of Crows is just one of those, you know, the things they do with marketing. Let's take the big thing that's on the TV screens at the moment, and let's say our book is like this one because it's ever so slightly linked in storyline. But M.J. Kuhn's Among Thieves is released on the 7th of September, so I'm going to have this one down as book 2 after I've finished Empire in Black and Gold. Books 3 and 4 are then buddy reads again, and these ones are again two that I'm a little bit apprehensive about, purely because I don't know a lot about them, and they are both chunky little books. So first one is Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. This is the biggest of them. It's about 850 pages. I've picked this up on the Kindle, so at least it doesn't weigh as much as an 850 page book. This one though, I don't know a lot about, but I'm going to give it priority purely because Andrew over at Andrew's Wizardly Reads mentioned this in, I think it was a book haul that he did. No, it was a tag video where the question was, what's a book that you're not sure you want to read? He said Priory of the Orange Tree for whatever reason. I forget the reason that he gave. But he basically said, because he's a bit of a buddy read whore, that if anyone wants to nominate this for a buddy read, I'll jump in with you. So I said I'm in the same position as you. I've got this book on my Kindle. I don't know whether I want to read it or not. I'm a bit unsure. Let's buddy read. And we've got a few others who have joined in since then, as is the beauty of today's age. And we're going to read this one together in August. I understand it's got a bit of a slow start, but if I can push through that, apparently it does pick up from then, and loads of people have said this is a really good book. So I'm a bit nervous about it, but I'm also excited about it, and we'll see how this one goes, and hopefully it'll be a good one. So in the fourth book and the third of the buddy reads for the month is The Dragonbone Chair by Tad Williams, book one of Memory, Sorrow and Thorn. This is one that if any of the books do get pushed, it's going to be this one because it's the one that I'm least excited about. The other ones, where I'm a mood reader, I'm still excited to pick them up, so I know it'll be easy enough for me to start them, as opposed to The Dragonbone Chair. I've had on my Kindle the series for a long time, and I've just never got round to it because I've never just felt like it. There's always been another book or another few books which I've been more excited about. So again, this is a big book. It's I think my Kindle version is 801 pages, so it's quite a bit of an investment, bearing in mind that there's a second book of probably similar size and an even bigger third book, which is, well, big enough to be split into two. So like with The Shadows of the Apt, this read along with the Wizardly Duo Discord is spread over a period of the next 4 months. So quite a big investment if it's not going to be one that I get into. We'll see how I go at the end of, hopefully at the end of Priory of the Orange Tree, and see whether I'm going to jump into this one or whether I need maybe a palate cleanser to get me through to the end of the month. It's all up in the air at that point, and we'll see how we go. So that's the plan anyway, 3 buddy reads and a review copy. So it doesn't give me a lot of room because of my reading speed, I guess, with 3 pretty big books here, because Empire in Black and Gold is, again, it's about 350 pages. So Among Thieves is less than 400, I think it's in the 300s. So that one's not too bad, I think. But we'll see how we go and how much time for reading I have and how I'm enjoying them, and we'll go from there. At the end of the month, I've got quite a few shorter titles on my Kindle, so if I need an ebook at the end of that, I've got plenty to choose from, and I'll be able to pick something up to tide me over to the end of the month if necessary. But I'll be honest with you, even though I'm a booktuber and even though I'm doing monthly wrap-ups and TBRs at the moment, I don't hold myself to the month, so I'm not bothered about I have to finish a book by the end of the month or I have to wait to start a new book at the start of the month, anything like that. I'll just read a book as and when, basically. So if I carry a book, half of it in 1 month and half of it in the next month, that's fine, that's reading. I don't agree with setting myself such rigid timeframes for books or anything along those lines, because ultimately, what are we reading for? We're reading for enjoyment, we're reading for pleasure. It should be fun, and that's it. So this is where you come in as usual. So hit the comments down below if you've read any of these books, if you've got any comments, thoughts, feelings on them, and let me know what you think, basically. I'll see you in another video soon, but until then, as usual, take care of yourselves and read some good books. Bye bye for now.